Morning, afternoon now. Just thought I'd check in with a little video. It's been a few days again since the last one. Haven't felt particularly inspired. Just been outside, enjoying the weather, enjoying the garden as usual. Yeah, we're kind of. I'm feeling we're kind of starting to emerge a little bit from this shadow of COVID-19. I use the word shadow because it has felt a little bit oppressive, to say the least. And yeah, as I start to emerge from it, as people are starting to feel into what could be classed as a new normality, we're seeing a lot of differences of. If there weren't enough differences of opinion during this whole crisis, which apparently isn't over yet, there are certainly differences now coming out of it, and it seems to me very, very interesting that there are two polarities, two extremes as usual, as is life on planet Earth. There's the extreme polarity that wants us to emerge from this in such a tight, secure, cautious, indoctrinated, trained and conditioned way that they've started putting pedestrian roundabouts in shopping malls and creating jobs for people called social distancing champions, and are essentially creating virtual boxes and systems for us to go about our daily lives within an environment which was fairly easygoing in the past, but now isn't so easygoing. And you kind of wonder where that's all coming from. We tend to, as humans, repress a lot our fears and our shadow, okay? Our shadow aspects are essentially, this collection of undesirables within us, or socially undesirable traits that are sometimes negative, sometimes they're not so negative, but they're kept hidden, okay? And a lot of these things, as part of our shadow, are things that we don't like about ourselves, okay? So when we're being a little bit non-PC, when we're not following the rhetoric, when we are behaving in certain ways that wouldn't be classed as socially acceptable or offensive, then we either judge ourselves for those things or we tend to hide them. And the problem we've got is when we hide them and repress them and push them away, we aren't acknowledging them. We aren't actually living as authentic beings, okay? Because these things are actually part of us. And it's going to be very interesting, actually, when people are going to be forced into tighter control structures because of this nonsense that's gone on, to see how much of their authenticity they're going to have to push away even further. Because if you're really desperate to go shopping, like a lot of people were, right, yesterday when some of the shops opened in the UK, queues outside the Nike store, battles through the doors outside Primark, all this. I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it, really? It's crazy. But if you're that desperate to buy something, you're that desperate to feed that addiction of consumption, you're going to do anything to feed that addiction, aren't you? I mean, if someone stands outside the door of Primark and says, "Oh, you're only allowed to hop on one leg as you're walking around the store, And when you reach that certain point there under the clothes rails, you have to crawl. You know, what are you prepared to put up with? What are we prepared to actually put up with in order to live a life? You know, and I'm talking in extremes here. I mean, obviously shopping isn't my favourite cup of tea, really, so I'm not really going to miss going around shopping centres. In fact, I would rather redirect my energy and my resources into, you know, local businesses, smaller companies that have struggled more and suffered during this whole event, and not feed these big chains anymore. Because if that's the way you got to live to go about your business, then for me, that's a no-no, you know. And supply demand basically states if you don't feed a system, it's your energy, the system eventually collapses, right? Yeah, this the pendulum, the system, the polarity system needs your energy to keep moving, right? So everyone who's complaining about 5G at the moment, dump your smartphones. Dump your smartphones. Turn your internet off. Yeah? How addicted are we to these devices that I'm even speaking through now? You're feeding it by buying it. Money, yeah, is ultimately just a form of energy, right? It's energy that's condensed into whatever we transact in. Bits of paper, coins, bits of gold, silver, whatever. You know, we make a very complicated system around it, but ultimately it's just energy, right? So it's a way of transferring energy. So this work that I do for you has required a certain amount of energy from me. Therefore, if you transact appropriately, then you will receive that energy back in currency, okay, which then allows you then to transfer that energy to buy some food or whatever. So it's about energy transfer, and energy has to flow, right? So, you know, a lot of people that come for healings with me, you know, they're very blocked. Their energy isn't flowing very well, and for various reasons. A lot of the time they're actually repressing their shadow aspects. A lot of the time they're not living an authentic life. A lot of the time there's old emotional traumas, wounds, you know, you name it, it's out there, right? But what all this does is it creates blocks. It's like damming up a river, yeah? And if you start to place branches and sticks and stones in a river, eventually the river will burst its banks and out will come a bit of an eruption, okay? Eventually it'll settle down again. But the trick is to try and keep flowing. It's the same with money, right? Money has to flow. So these multi-billionaires on this planet, these hoarders, right? They're actually some of the most blocked, energetically blocked people you could ever want to meet, because to some extent they're accumulating so much, they're not freely allowing it to flow and distribute back through and into the system to benefit the whole. Yeah, it's not just about me and hoarding and I'm safe and I'm okay and you're not. It's about letting it flow. Yeah, because as you give, so shall you receive. Yeah, there's universal laws in place that if you're a stingy miser, right, the universe will reflect that. Basically, you might accumulate lots of money, but if you're not allowing that money to flow, karma will take its course, and you won't have other things that nurture you and your soul come back to you. So money, anything in this physical realm that kind of that helps us get about our daily business is ultimately a condensation of an energetic framework, you know, in the more subtle realms that then manifests as a transaction in this physical realm. So when you start to hold back, so as money flows, as energy flows, systems go, yeah? Money makes the world go round. Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. Money does make the world go round. Yeah, money gets people out of bed in the morning. It gets people to work. It gets people producing things that we can all exist within in some kind of societal framework. So money, or energy to an extent, your energy is powerful, right? Because your energy, depending on how you use it, can enhance your life, or it can, if you misuse it, it can destroy yours and others' life. So energy comes with responsibility. If you've got, if you've been gifted a life, then you have a responsibility to use that energy in an appropriate way, which benefits a more unifying principle rather than a more self-serving principle. Now, some people might disagree with me, and again, I don't really care, because everyone's level of perception is right for them. So it's not about being selfless or being selfish. It's about understanding where you're at and living authentically, yeah, and actually honouring that, and those that disagree, just accepting that at times, accepting it, and not trying to force their agenda onto others. I put a post out on my page a couple of days ago saying everyone's right is their right, yeah? So, but everyone is right based on their level of conscious cognizance and conscious awareness. So depending where your consciousness is at, if you're like I've explained before, if you're living in your instinctual snake consciousness, or whether you're floating above all of this in your ego consciousness, your right is right, okay? So you can't judge a snake for being a snake, nor can a snake judge an eagle for being an eagle. It's just difference, right? So we've got to get beyond this concept that I'm right and you're wrong, okay? There are objective truths about, yeah, and there are limits and boundaries that collectively we as a species agree to, okay? Just basic stuff that keeps us alive, really, yeah, and stops us fucking each other over too much. But beyond that, when you're looking at the history of our humanity, if you actually get or drill down to the root cause of why we create so much fear for ourselves, why we create so much harm for ourselves and each other, why we have wars, why we're forever bickering, fighting, accumulating, and behaving like very spoilt, rotten children on this planet, is because we've forgotten, right, that this perception of separation that we exist within is real. Okay? So when you are entrenched in that snake consciousness, your view of yourself is of an autonomous, self-created, self-sustaining being that has to fight everything else, that has to protect itself from everything else around it. And that causes problems because, A, that's not true, because just try and hold your breath for 10 minutes, right? As soon as you hold your breath, you begin to have problems, yeah? And as soon as you start to breathe, you realise that you are not a self-sustaining being, right? You are reliant on the oxygen in the air, for starters, which is also, therefore, linked to the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed and then oxygen produced by all the vegetation and trees that exist on this planet. So immediately you can see how you are linked to an intrinsic, unifying network of life in this garden we call planet Earth. Okay, so you're not separate from it. You're not completely independent of it. And another thing, this COVID exercise has, to some extent highlighted, is how interdependent we all are on each other to do business, right? Because as soon as people lock themselves away in their homes, no one's buying stuff, no one's driving, no one's doing anything, right? Okay, we're transacting virtually to an extent, but I work as a healer. Okay, so my client base went off the shelf very quickly. Been doing bits and bobs, bit of online work, a little bit of one-to-one work, but it's no way as busy as it was before. which is okay. I'm enjoying the break, enjoying the time off, trying to make the most of and adapting to a situation which you got no control over, right? That's a very shamanic skill, adaptation, adapting to your environment, not trying to control your environment. And there's such a difference between trying to control something and then weaving your way into it and through it, okay, and adapting within it. You can only, if you want to really change something, you can only change something from within. It has to start within you, but then you can't stand outside of a system, point at it, say it's wrong and try and change it. It has to happen organically from within it, okay? And that's where a lot of people go wrong. That's when we get all the clashes. You're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong, you're right, or you're right and I don't think I'm right, but I think I'm right because I was told I was right at school, so therefore I've kept that belief and that attachment, and therefore you're wrong. Okay, now I'm going to fight you for it. Power games, that illusion of separation, yet again, creates this dynamic where we forget how we're all of us intrinsically linked. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. And I've forgotten that most of my life. Okay? When you're born, you pop out into this reality. No one teaches you this stuff at school, do they? No one teaches you, you're an intrinsic, beautiful being of light, having a temporary experience in a biological suit, or a spacesuit, which means you can navigate and sense and experience this perceptual reality, which is one of many, right? No one tells you that. They give you a name, they give you a language, they give you a nationality. You get imprinted with your parental ancestral lineages, beliefs. You go to school, you get indoctrinated, you get programmed in a certain way, and that program feeds that principle of separation. It feeds that illusion that we're actually all separate. Okay, now I could get really spiritual here and talk about the potential liberation of consciousness from matter and all kind of dimensions and whatnot, and getting back to God and the absolute and non-duality and all this kind of stuff, but that wouldn't really make sense to most people because we're so far away from that in our time-space reality that we have to start from where we're at now. And the best thing to do now is to basically realize that when I'm looking at you through this screen and you're receiving me through this screen, okay, we're looking at ourselves. Yeah, you are an aspect of me and I am an aspect of you. And therefore, we have to recognize that in tandem with recognizing that separation and those differences. Okay, so a truly compassionate being will recognize all the shadow aspects, will be fully aware of all the grotty bits and all the good bits, all the duality within the being. Okay, it will love all of it. It will be compassionate towards all of it, and it will recognize it in others too. So when potential triggers do occur, the response mechanism is completely different. So if someone offends you, someone pisses you off, someone makes you angry, you have to honour that. You have to honour the fact that there is separation, there is a difference, because, we're banging heads, with the perceptual framework is a three-dimensional, painful experience, But you also have to remember. And that's what, people talk about liberation, talk about enlightenment. Enlightenment is actually remembering what you are already, okay? Which you've added so many layers and masks to that you've forgotten. So, if we can look at people, even the people wearing the tabards saying social distance champions that I know would trigger the crap out of me if I was walking around a supermarket or a store going, "Excuse me, you are not 2 metres apart from that individual in front of you. You are 1.6 metres. Please can you step back 40 centimetres in order to be in compliance with our customers' policies. Thank you very much. That kind of attitude does my nut, right? It really does. It does my nut. And I recognise it, and I'm aware of it, and I'm willing to authentically express it. But what I have to do, as well as authentically express my response to a potential individual like that, is to also recognise that they are also an aspect of me. They are also an aspect of divinity in their own little karmic predicament, their own little karmic spacesuit, right? So I've got to see beyond that. Yeah, I've got to see beyond that, and I've got to use that opportunity to work on myself, work on my tolerance levels, work on my levels of compassion. Go, wow, you're really trapped in that, aren't you? In that role, that role of that self-important, powerful role, because you've been given a T-shirt and a freaking McDonald's badge or whatever it is. There we are. That's where you're at. Problem you've got is quite a lot of them around, and yeah. I'll say no more before I get myself into trouble. So we have to view these differences, and we have to view these opportunities of confinement, all right, and what's looking like further confinement, because, I mean, don't know about you, but isn't it amazing how all this technology is suddenly rolled out in an instant? Thermal scanning cameras in supermarkets, malls, where'd they get all that Perspex freaking plastic from to stick in front of the tills? They kind of just materialised that out of nowhere overnight, didn't they? Yeah? QR codes on your freaking phone on COVID tracing app. All this technology's there. It's just been waiting to be implemented. There's a plan, okay? Some of it you can't control. Some of it you can set boundaries towards. And again, it's what are you willing to tolerate versus what you're not willing to tolerate. And sometimes you've got to be so in your truth and not fear anything that it comes to a point where you may even have to to be in your truth, as extreme as it might sound, put down your life. Yeah? Your physical life anyway. Because where there's no fear, there's no ability to control. There's no ability to take your power away, right? Because most of your power is taken away through some fear, right? Even if you're attached to something, there's a fear behind that. You fear losing it. And that's where, a lot of the shadow work comes in very necessary in these times, because the more you can start to let go of these fears, the more you can start to awaken your inner being, awaken your truth, the less fearful you become of anything, including death, right? Because when you don't fear death, what else is there to fear? Nothing, because you just live your life to its maximum potential daily. Yeah, and that might be different depending on how you're feeling every day, but you just get up and get on with it, right? But it's okay then to stand up and say no. Yeah, a lot of people won't stand up and say no. They will sign agreements, gagging orders, all sorts of stuff just to save their asses, save their jobs, save the money they're putting on their table. And yeah, I get that. I understand it. Because there's fear behind that, right? And fear is quite powerful or forceful, right? So where there's fear, there's vulnerability. And I'm not saying certain fears aren't helpful. I mean, if you're getting chased by a tiger, you need to be told through your physiology, through fear, that you got to get gone, yeah? Otherwise you're going to get eaten. But that's more of an instinctual, natural fear, which is inherent in our animal, than all this other fear that we create for ourselves, okay? So we need to get a grip on a lot of this stuff, and as we start to see more of these controls coming at us, we might even go into fear over those. Immediately when I see some of this stuff, immediately I feel like my chest gets tight, and I think, oh, really? Who's coming up with these ideas? What grey-suited, soulless alien sitting behind some back office desk is writing this legislation and these regulations? It's just like they must be from a completely different freaking solar system, because none of it's human. It's nothing. It's not there. It's just robotic. So I'm getting on my soapbox, but the point of today's video if there is a point, right, is no matter what's going on, no matter how you are navigating this reality, no matter how different and separate you feel at times, there has to be a remembering. So remember who you truly are, and remember that there is a commonality between you, your inner you, and whoever else is inner you. And that stretches as far as all the kingdoms on this planet, the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the insect kingdom, the animal kingdom, as well as the human kingdom, okay? The intellectual animal kingdom. Because I do always state, you know, when I'm doing various teachings and that we're not human beings yet. We're far from it, okay? We'd like to think we are, but, you know, until we can actually entrench that truth, that we are all connected, and that we create systems of governance, systems of life that recognize that as first and foremost, we're going to keep banging our heads against each other. So yeah, do your work, right? Do the work. Use your life as the work. What I find is a useful tool, okay, when I feel myself slipping into forgetfulness, is I'll grab my little malas, all right, and this is just your typical Buddhist technique, and I'll just, even the act of holding my beads, I've got, you know, one set for certain meditations, I've got another set for now, because I'm cool like that, because I've got a lot of bling, yeah, got a lot of spiritual bling. But I'll grab my beads, and immediately, as soon as I grab my beads, that's a trigger to remember, right? That I'm falling into forgetfulness, and I need to try and bring myself back. And if I'm really getting hooked and pulled into it, then I'll just start reciting a little mantra in my head. Could be any mantra, yeah? Could be Om, Richie, you're forgetting that you're a spiritual being of light and love, having a temporary experience in a human body, repeated 108 times. Or you can actually use a proper mantra, like a Sanskrit mantra or something. Yeah? And there's plenty of them out there. A lovely Buddhist mantra, a really simple Buddhist mantra that you should all know anyway, is Om Mani Padme Hum. Yeah, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. It's just nice. It just brings you back really quickly. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be overly, you know, you don't have to be overly identified with I can sing the Gayatri mantra backwards, forwards, left and right, in Sanskrit, French, and German. Right? Doesn't matter, all right? As long as it brings you back to who you are, your truth, all right? So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, because we're run up to half an hour already. But start to become aware of your shadow, and as we do these videos, as we further do these videos, I'm going to go into separate or more detailed aspects of how the ego works within us, how the soul would potentially manifest within us, and how we've suppressed and how we can work to bring out our shadow, integrate it, and yeah, just, you know, become more authentic beings, really. But always remembering who we are. So anyway, have a great day, and see you next time.